Ah, kia ora koutou. I'm David Hanna. I'm part of the team at Te Hiko and part of the team at Wesley Community Action, and it's my privilege to share with you a few thoughts at whakaaro about what we call community-led development. And really just to demystify community-led development, because it's something that we actually all know something about, and it's what groups of people in villages and tribes and communities have been doing for a long, long time. So I'm just going to briefly run through some slides to help unpack that. First of all, we start with the whenua, the land, and in this situation where we are in Pororua, the whenua of Pororua and the wider community. So the harbour, the rivers, all that forms the whenua. And then over time, we acknowledge the First Nations, the Indigenous people who are of this place. In this situation, it's Ngāti Toa Rangatira, and as the iwi and their various hapu. And then over time, through migration and colonisation, many different new groups and that arrived in this whenua, in this place, and they formed various groupings. And this diagram shows some of those different groupings, local government, community organisations, sports clubs, all those groups that make part of the community. So businesses, etc. So that's the part of the rich korowai or tapestry that is makes up Pororua community, and all of them interweave and have a relationship with mana whenua and the land of which they occupy. So then I go on to my next slide, just get my mouse to work. So when all of those strands are understood and acknowledged, we talk about community development is the process that strengthens the vitality of any community by activating and weaving all the contributions of those many different strands, groups and people that are connected to, in this situation, Pororua. Now, it's important to understand that communities are actually living entities, not machines. They're not mechanical. They're not linear. So, as a living system, communities are always changing. They're dynamic. Things are expanding and some things are contracting. And this diagram, which is called the Panaki cycle, which people will familiar in ecology, is a helpful reminder that all human activity, communities, groups have this cycle that they go through. So when we're talking about community-led development, we really need to understand this dynamic of expanding and contracting. And when we sort of build this together, we begin to get a bit of a picture or a model that talks about how, as groups go through on that journey, they actually build their capability and development, and they sort of sometimes they can start as loose connections of people just knowing each other in the street. Then something happens and they take an action, they organize something, and they grow that capacity. So as they sort of do that over time, then they actually sort of build their own capacity as a community. And so as this picture illustrates, moving from loose connections, the ability to act, the ability to organize, and then as they feel more confident, the ability to partner and collaborate and cooperate with a range of groups. So that's generally the sort of the dynamic, and understanding that happens as part of community-led development. And in this middle there are a set of sort of principles that sort of inform that process. And they talk about the value of having a shared vision and commonality, working from people's strengths and what assets, and everybody brings something to the table, valuing all groups and all strands and sectors in the community, and helping grow local leadership in place. And really importantly is that whatever we do, we reflect and we learn from what we're doing. And it's a constant process of being involved in activity and then reflecting and refining. So using that sort of knowledge, I'm just going to touch on to finish off, just three initiatives that have grown out of the Pororua community that have in essence reflected that what we call community-led development approach, and have gone on a bit of a journey, and from really small beginnings and some conversations grown some initiatives which are quite impactful, both in Pororua and the wider community. The first one is around the whole Kai initiative, which may have been talked about in the Assembly before, which was the discussion about a part of the Pororua community was regarded as a food desert, very little options. There was a community response that said, rather than a food bank, how can we get healthier food in the community? That triggered a fruit and veggie co-op. That went on a journey, and then that's triggered talk about composting and how we can recycle and build good soil within the community. That's triggered growing seedlings in the community. And out of that is some really creative and innovative discussion around a local grower system that feeds into the cooperative. Another example is this group, a very powerful group that formed in Pororua in the east. One of the social groupings in that community is the Mungal mob, and a group of women got together and had some conversations, and they went on a journey, and they formed a group that actually started to make a significant positive contribution into their local community, be it contributions from local parks, initiatives and events, even lobbying to reduce the number of alcohol outlets within the community. A really powerful story. And the last example is NZ People, which started in Waitangarua, and that's about the challenges about meth addiction and how do parents, siblings, neighbours, aunties, uncles, or current users support each other to both respond to the challenges of meths and also support people to come off meths. So that was something that started very small. It went on a journey, it organised, and now it's quite a complex collaboration with initiatives around the all of New Zealand. So and looking at, there's over 8,000 people on that Facebook page that deal with that. So kia ora koutou. Hopefully that triggers some conversation or some thoughts or some questions about the value of embracing this approach within Pororua to help tackle climate change or any of those other issues, wicked problems, or whatever we like to find them as, to sort of find some good solutions. So ngā mihi kia koutou.